Hey everybody, Trace W here, and I'm just here to show you the advanced rules, to show you the ropes, how it's played, because it might be used a little more in the future, and I didn't really go in depth in the first video that I made, so here we go. Alright, so jumping right in, start out with the same land. It doesn't matter what century it's in. I got Japan, the century founded, but now when you start playing, you need to choose a century. Now I'm going to start out with the 1800s. So, just like regular, you have the 3-card max. So I'm going to go ahead and play Thomas Crapper. He was born in the 1800s. It doesn't matter when they died or when their main events in life happened. It's all about when they were born. So Samuel Spencer and Eddie Rickenbacker all originated in the 1800s. So I've played 3 cards, and now I draw back up just like regular. But let's say that I didn't have these cards. Let's say I had someone from the 1900s or someone from the 2000s. So now I have to only play, say, just the one. I increase my morale by the same amount. By the way, the max is 700. So I gain 300, but that's all I play. Now for every card you don't play, so I played 1, 2 more to go. For every card I don't play, I increase my century points. Now your century points are just the time span that you can play in. This was born in the 1800s. My century point is set at 1800. Now I can play in 2 directions. So let's see. Say I was in the 1800s here. Here's the number 18. Now that I've increased my point, I'm increasing in both directions. So we got the 1900s and the 1700s. For every point that I increase, aka for every card I don't play, they increase in 1 point in each direction. So I don't play 1 card, I increase like this, 2 like this. Besides the first turn, you have a default increase by 1. So this turn I wouldn't do that. This turn I would just increase by 2, but if the next turn I only played 1 card, then I would increase by 3. So, moving on. The turn order works the same, whereas you can't affect each other. Even though there's less you can do, say someone was to draw the Mount Vesuvius eruption, and they choose the first century, then the game's automatically over. So there's still no crossplay within the first 2 turns. Everything adheres to the rules the same. There's just an addition, not really any changes. Say you have an interrupt card. So say I chose the 2000s and I was to play my card. This does not count as a card played. So if you only played 2 cards after that, you get your additional card increase. Also, my card searches for something in the deck. Searching does not count toward your point increase. It doesn't count as a card play, just like regular. And say I wanted someone from the 1400s, even though I chose the 2000s, and I'm nowhere near that, it doesn't matter. Because Chris Columbus already, Chris Columbus wasn't actually played from my hand. He was taken out of my deck with an effect that was played from my hand. So that's really the basics of the game. There's not that much different, but I'm going to do a small little playthrough just to kind of show you how it goes. And you'll see that it really cripples some of the more powerhouse gameplay. And that's a good thing, because some decks just demolish others, not really giving them a chance. And I'm not saying we should get rid of the original gameplay, but I think this should be a popularized version. So let me shuffle up here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I start out with Tonga, so I increased my morale by 300 points. I'm now at 300. I draw a 5, and now I have to pick my century, which will be the 1800s. So I will play Auto Han and increase my morale points by 500, but since the max is 700, it'll cut off right there. Now I also have Ernest Shackleton, who is an interrupt, so he doesn't count as a card played. I got Venezuela. Now I draw my 2 cards, and because I chose the 1800s, I increase my point by 200 in each direction. So now I can play in the 1600s and the 2000s. So, the next turn, I'm going to play Simo Haya down. I will not use him, so I'll put his sniper counters on him. I'll play James Madison and increase my morale by 400. So usually I'd be at my max morale for the first 2 turns, but because my play is limited, I can't do that. Now when it comes to cards such as this, Lost Among the Pharaohs, and it doesn't say the year in the bar here. It doesn't matter what it says in the text box or down like where it says the Egyptian era. Only in the name area does it matter if can you find the date. So I'm going to discard Auto Han as my free action and play this to return it. Now I'm maxed out. You see, I had to kind of waste my resources instead of cutting straight to the game. Straight to powering through to the 3000 mark. Now, I'm going to draw back up. And I played all 3 cards, so I only increase 1 in each direction. So I can play in the 1500s, and since nothing exists past the 2000s, that's where it stops. I can play all the way into the future and just to the 1500s. So now, it's my 3rd turn. I increase my morale by 400 points. And I'll play the 6-Day War. Generally, if you're playing the 6-Day War, you're going to gain 400 points, so only by 3. But I still haven't played these my 2 cards since this was an interrupt. So I increase my points by 300. So now I can play in the 1200s. Following turn, after I draw up from the first one, I can play Johann Gutenberg, Yi Sun Shin, and max out my morale, even though I generally don't like to do that. And then Galileo Galilei, I increase my pointage just by 1 because I played all my cards. Except this is an interrupt, so I increase it by 2. Now I can play in the 10th century. So I draw up, and I'll play Alan B. Shepard to max out my morale to 3,000, and I got Madagascar. So I really had to stunt everything I was doing. I wouldn't have been able to play Galileo originally, so I wouldn't have some of the protection, so it leaves me a little more vulnerable. Overall, I think it's a more balanced form of gameplay, and yeah, it really brings down powerful decks to the same level as those without as much experience or as many cards to pick from. So, I hope you enjoyed this, and go ahead and try it out if you want. It'll hopefully you'll like it, and I'll catch you next time.